seeing estimates that these influencers are charging up to $250,000 for an undisclosed advertisement on TikTok. We're also seeing, sure, maybe $800,000 spent on a over-the-top vending machine marketing stunt. But most importantly, we're seeing reports that this brand spent $43 million in 4 months on advertising alone. And yet somehow I keep seeing things where people are saying that Poppi is just some viral product. How does a product actually go viral these days? Is it ever because a product is truly so magical and awesome that it just speaks for itself, becoming a trend of its own? Or are we really just existing in a very carefully and strategically orchestrated attention economy, where virality isn't something that happens by accident, but is strategically manufactured and expensively purchased? Today, we're going to take our time exploring exactly how brands like Poppi have mastered this art form of making strategic advertising campaigns feel like real life, like they were just magically, naturally inserted into viral trends and viral content. Not because it was paid for, but because the product is just viral. And as we'll get into, these practices do absolutely violate FTC guidelines as well as TikTok's own rules and policies. So to give you an idea of what to expect from today's video, we will be looking at real examples of marketing manipulation that are happening right in front of us from brands like Poppi and even their biggest competitor. And we'll also explore some deeper theories and strategies around this phenomenon, specifically including the messy world of undisclosed advertisements. So these are examples of where influencers were paid as part of a marketing campaign by Poppi to give glowing testimonials that are intended to go viral to their own audiences while never disclosing that this is an advertisement. We'll also dip our toes into the messy world of strategic product placement on social media, where, again, Poppi and its main competitor Olipop are paying, or allegedly paying, influencers a lot of money to strategically insert their products into already viral content. We'll also explore rage bait tactics, which is a tried and true method in marketing to get our attention in the attention economy and keep us hooked. And we'll also dip our toes into the lifestyle marketing playbook to better understand why brands like Poppi are spending so much time and money to manufacture this kind of virality and ultimately not only tap into our culture as it exists today, but honestly shape it for their benefit, which this strategy traces back to over a century, to the time of Edward Bernays, who is the founder, or father, I should say, of modern public relations. It's all very interesting how these marketing strategies are being repurposed in kind of sketchy ways for modern social media marketing. But first, we cannot skip talking about the massive Poppi controversy that popped up last week after the Super Bowl, where Poppi allegedly spent about $800,000 on purchasing all of these massive, over-the-top, giant pink Poppi vending machines and stocked them with an almost comical and extremely expensive amount of Poppi product and shipped them out to some of the most extravagant homes of some of TikTok's top and most wealthy influencers. So let's jump into that drama.
Poppi has responded to all of the vending machine backlash. So Poppi had sent over 30 influencers full-sized hot pink Poppi vending machines, and it honestly rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. People were saying that they shouldn't have given them to already rich influencers, but instead could have placed them where people could try sodas for free, like college campuses, restaurants, weddings, or hospitals. And during all of this chaos, their competitor Olipop started commenting on people's videos about it, alleging that the vending machines cost $25,000 per, which only fueled the hate even more. Today, Poppi's co-founder and chief brand officer came on their social media to address it. In the video, she says that the vending machines do not cost $25,000. They actually responded to a comment saying that the number reference was inflated by over 60%, which if you do the math means that the vending machines cost more around $15,000, which is still a lot. She says in the video that the campaign was put in place to share Poppi with creators around the the US to share with their friends and family, and that creator marketing has just been a staple of their brand, and that they had always intended to share it with you or us, the viewers, through marketing events, community pop-ups, and giveaways. And then she asked people to help nominate their friends or wherever it is that they think that the vending machines should go to. I don't know, do you guys think this was really their plan all along? I mean, get people talking and upset and then turn around and say, oh, we were planning on doing that good thing that you guys told us that we should do the whole time. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think.
So as we can see in the comments here, people are absolutely outraged by this whole stunt. It's gone its very own brand of viral. I mean, there are absolute national news stories about this whole controversy, especially because Poppi had featured some top influencers in their Super Bowl ad, which got tons and tons of views. And as we can see in the comments, people are calling this PR stunt just totally out of touch. It's this waste of money. It's a classic example of overconsumption. People are just really upset. And on the one hand, I have to say here, as someone who works in marketing, I really do like to see people question the marketing tactics that they are willing to accept and engage with, and think critically about what they like and don't like, because that is our right as consumers. But on the other hand, as someone who comes from the marketing world, I think this is a really great opportunity to break down the strategy behind these marketing campaigns. Because while I love the idea in theory of taking a charitable approach that is very connected to your larger customer base, us little people who are not rich and overly wealthy and have to budget and enjoy our little Poppi treats, even though they may be a little bit more on the expensive side, I guess that is up for debate in itself. But the reality is here, and as we'll see today, is that working with these top influencers in this specific way, even if it does cause a little bit of outrage, is a really effective form of marketing. And what I'd love for you to do is think a bit right now about how you feel about this Poppi controversy, and by the end of this video, let me know if you feel differently about this whole thing. And also, in that same note, if this is your first time watching a video of mine, I just wanted to say welcome. Thank you so much for being here, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Carolyn, and this is Over the Influence, a series where we are breaking down the wild world of social media marketing. And essentially, while I'm not here to villainize marketing as a whole or advertising, we live in capitalism, it's part of what makes our world go round, I do want to get into some of the more slimier tactics that are happening, because deceptive marketing is becoming a trend, especially in the wild west of social media. So going back to this Poppi controversy, the question of, was this outrage all part of the plan? It's a great question. Was this PR backlash part of Poppi's strategy? Because this kind of outrage we'll see in some ways of history of where controversy in marketing has sometimes worked or hurt a brand, but for better or for worse, this kind of controversy often is used as a way to skyrocket brand awareness, dominate PR cycles, and ultimately sometimes we see this drive an increase in product adoption and ultimately increase sales. But to understand how these brands embed themselves into our culture in a way that does drive sales, we do have to better understand how influencer marketing has evolved. But before we do, let's just take a second to acknowledge the level of backlash that Poppi has received over the last week. Take this viral video, for example, of somebody pouring out her Poppi in protest of the whole scandal, and also pledging her allegiance to its main competitor, Olipop, at the same time. And this kind of video of just getting rid of Poppi and moving over to Olipop has become a bit of a trend in itself. But let's talk about Olipop, shall we? So this is another kind of better for you soda brand. And as we saw in this video, they have been right there inserting themselves into this scandal to the point that they're actually fueling the fire and calling out how much these vending machines allegedly cost, calling out the high price of a Super Bowl commercial, which is $8 million. So they're really pushing this narrative that Poppi doesn't care about their customers. They only care about the people at the top. They only care about these big out-of-touch influencers, and they're positioning the Olipop brand as the one who is in touch with the real people, which, I mean, come on. This is why I enjoy talking about marketing and laughing at this stuff, because Olipop, number one, is not off the hook in this situation. We're going to look at some examples from Olipop of them engaging in deceptive advertising practices. Both Olipop and Poppi are gaining a lot from kind of infiltrating social media and making it feel like one giant undisclosed undisclosed advertisement. So now stepping back here for a second, in an effort to better understand why Poppi went this route of working with these extremely wealthy, kind of top dog influencers who don't need those vending machines by any means, but have extreme power and influence. But first I want to take a step back to better understand how we got here and what Poppi's overall strategy has been that has led us up to this whole mess. So like I said before, Poppi is one of the biggest names in this prebiotic soda boom, or this healthier for you soda trend or manufactured trend. And the brand was founded almost 10 years ago now by Allison Ellsworth, who she still actually kind of acts as the face of the brand, which is really rare to see from a brand of this size, but clearly it speaks to their influencer first, or I believe they call it a creator first marketing strategy. The brand was originally created at Allison's home, and as the story goes, it was made to help with her own digestive issues that she was facing. But fast forward a few years, and Poppi has made an absolute massive shift from this niche wellness beverage to a huge lifestyle brand that, as we'll get into, is giving some of the biggest players in the industry a run for their money, backed by millions and millions of dollars in advertising that fuels an influencer-driven machine. And to really kind of drive the point home of how culturally relevant Poppi has become in the world of TikTok and Gen Z and cool, fun trends, they actually even recently dropped a merch line at Target. So let's take a look at that.
Red alert, Poppi sweat sets at Target. Does nobody else know about this? What? The iconic pink Poppi sweat set with the shit on the back. Oh my god. And the matching pants. Look at the butt. Hold on. Guys. And then there's this neutral color. I don't know what's on the back of this. I didn't look. And the sweats. Guys. Oh my god. I haven't seen a single thing about this. I didn't hear there was going to be a release. I didn't know there's going to be a collab. There's also a blue one. I didn't even show you that. I don't see any pants that go with this, but like, what does the back look like? Oh my god.
Talk about a viral brand, am I right? Poppi is clearly positioning itself as the hottest, youngest, most culturally relevant, stylish, kind of healthy girl alternative to soda, which feels like a very modern approach, but I think it's important to remember that this is not a new playbook. Because the idea here behind lifestyle marketing is that Poppi and its main competitor Olipop aren't just selling this new competing soda that has added benefits or is a healthier alternative to some of the biggest name brands. Instead, what they're really doing here is just repackaging the same tactics that Coke and Pepsi used to become these cultural icons of the 20th century, which ultimately is the goal with lifestyle marketing. We've heard the founder of Poppi, Allison Ellsworth, say many times that Poppi is more than just a soda. So looking back at history to understand exactly how this is done, Coca-Cola and Pepsi were ultimately the pioneers of this world of lifestyle marketing, originally turning their soda into more than just a drink. Instead, it became a feeling, a statement, something that really managed to intertwine itself with the cultural zeitgeist. So going back and looking at Pepsi's campaign, The Choice of a New Generation, the strategy here was to position Pepsi as the cooler, kind of rebellious alternative to Coca-Cola, which was kind of leaning more towards their open happiness campaign, which made Coke feel more like a universal symbol of joy and kind of togetherness. So the goal again was to associate soda with emotions, moments, memories, symbols of modern culture, and also identity. So it's not about taste, formula, nothing like that. It really is so much more. And again, coming from the world of marketing, I work in B2B marketing, and it's kind of a pretty boring world. A lot of my work is focused on creating educational materials, but also looking a lot at, you know, the customer life cycle and the customer journey and how to add value along the way. And I do actually believe that a way to add value in marketing is to add to our experience of life, whether it's through entertainment or education. So I actually can really look back at a lot of these campaigns from Coke and Pepsi. They didn't get it right all the time, but I can appreciate the areas where they managed to create the best form of marketing, which is ultimately storytelling. In my research, I came across Coke's Polar Bear Christmas Party advertisement, and it brought back warm, fuzzy, nostalgic feelings of my own childhood. And it's really powerful, this form of marketing's ability to entertain us and even bring us joy to the point that now, 20 plus years later, I look back at that and remember it as a memory that brings up positive feelings. Again, I'm not here to villainize this world or really take an all or nothing approach. I think it's important to appreciate when something was done well and also point out when marketing is taking advantage of us. But it's just fascinating how these brands have managed to really kind of like intertwine themselves with our life experience and turn something as simple as a fizzy amber colored drink into just a symbol of something bigger. So yes, now fast forward today, we can clearly see that both Olipop and Poppi are trying to use the same playbook, but just in a way that taps into today's cultural zeitgeist. And a quick little exercise here. I don't know if you're at home or at work, or maybe you're at the gym or somewhere way cooler, but if you look around, I don't think it would be hard for you to spot a lifestyle brand. Maybe it's a pair of Nike shoes or Wrangler jeans or Lululemon leggings. For me, all I have to do is grab my Apple iPhone, which I would absolutely argue that this is a form of lifestyle branding, while product development and product marketing is definitely a big piece of the Apple marketing world. Apple still has done a great job being sort of the symbol for innovation, passion, even status. And sometimes this is how lifestyle brands become known as cult brands, because the customers of these brands will sometimes become so deeply intertwined with the identity of a brand that they will even go to great lengths to defend it if there's ever any sort of criticism, or even take sides when there's controversy, aka Olipop versus Poppi. Very, very interesting stuff. One thing is clear in this era of lifestyle marketing, which is that products are no longer just products, but they end up being a reflection of who we are, or more importantly, who we want to be. So in the battle of Olipop versus Poppi, I guess what I could say is if you're a Poppi person, you may be drawn to feeling this kind of fun, young, hot, trendy influencer culture. Whereas if you're an Olipop person, you may still kind of be drawn to that cool, healthier for you soda world, but maybe the nostalgic branding really resonates with you. This overall better for you lifestyle, you know? But the reality is that creating a successful lifestyle brand is not just about having a great product or choosing a brand identity. It takes a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of strategy, a lot of experimenting, especially in this world where competition is so high. This is why we see rising lifestyle brands like Poppi spending mind-blowing amounts on advertising, PR, marketing, and this goes far beyond the $800,000 PR stunt that has blown up into this controversy that people are calling wasteful spending. And now I am not here to tell you what is wasteful spending or not. I, just like so many of other people out there today, am budget shopping. I am trying my best to save up money for things that I dream about. Like, I am not telling you how to feel, but I am just going to show you the numbers behind marketing campaigns like this in today's world. It is a lot of money. So to put it in perspective, starting with Starbucks, the Starbucks brand spent $508 million on advertising. So that was 2023, and that was up from $417 million in 2022. So when we look at some of these really well-known brands like Dunkin', McDonald's, who it may feel like they've kind of reached the top and they're at the point that they have our brand awareness, they have our brand loyalty. No, these brands spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year on marketing and advertising in order to stay top of mind and drive sales, because this is a extremely cutthroat market. Spending this kind of money just, it really isn't optional most of the time, because it is survival of the fittest. And like I said earlier, Poppi is giving these major players in their own industry a serious run for their money. So according to ad intelligence platform Media Radar, in just the 4 months between January to April of 2024, it was estimated that Poppi spent $43 million on advertising. $43 million. That's a lot of money for a pretty young brand that really saw its rise on just a kind of platform that's seen as a place for just teenagers, which is TikTok, which I know today we understand TikTok is not just teenagers, but but it still kind of has that stereotype. I think a lot of brands are only just now waking up to the power of a social media platform like TikTok. And to put that amount of money into perspective, here's how Poppi's ad spend stacks up next to some of the biggest names in the industry for that same time frame. So in that same time frame, Dr. Pepper spent $32 million on advertising, Gatorade spent $40 million, Poppi spent $43 million, Red Bull spent $60 million, and Coca-Cola spent $78 million. So the ability to have this much money to spend on advertising is really impressive for, like I said, a pretty young brand like Poppi, who saw its rise on TikTok. This brand has clearly made a lot of money in profits over the years, and this is important to keep in mind later in this video when we dive into some of the tactics that this brand is using to quote-unquote go viral on TikTok in a way that seems natural and can be extremely powerful. I also can't tell you how much of that $43 million was spent on influencer advertising in that time, but I would go as far to say that there is a lot of money being made in the influencer marketing world, especially if you're willing to engage in some deceptive practices, which again, we will get into in a little bit. But first, staying on the topic of big bucks in advertising, a huge chunk of this money, of course, we can wonder if it was spent on influencer marketing or commercials, digital media, billboards, all this kind of stuff. But historically, a huge part of advertising efforts like this have gone to celebrity deals, which plays into this world of influencer marketing because I believe what we're seeing when it comes to manufacturing viral products is a shift from favoring only celebrities to kind of manufacture that same sense of trendiness. And it's now done possibly even more effectively with influencers. So looking back in time, back in 2012, Beyonce had a $50 million advertising contract with Pepsi, which, as we know, when it comes to lifestyle marketing, this was not about selling soda. This was about positioning Pepsi as an aspirational brand to probably a younger audience, which we see time and time again when it comes to lifestyle brands. The most coveted audience is usually people aged 18 to 35. And that's a whole deep dive in itself, but essentially these young people are of working age, they have disposable income, they may not have kids or a mortgage that they have to save a lot of money towards. And a bonus in today's world for these brands that brands like Poppi now get is that they spend a lot of time on social media. I spend a lot of time on social media. So now we are seeing similar strategies from brands like Olipop and Poppi. And again, just keeping Olipop part of this conversation because I do not want them to be off the hook here. I imagine this is a similar marketing strategy and thought process Olipop took when they partnered with Camila Cabello, which she's a bit of a celebrity slash influencer, I guess, in the modern world of what it means to be a celebrity. And these choices are, again, to position these brands alongside aspiration. Aspiration sells. Celebrities and influencers generate impressions, yes, but they also help position what these brands mean in our mind, what they symbolize, and what kind of feeling we can enjoy when we purchase them. So to really break this down, Poppi's founder, Ellison Ellsworth, actually directly spoke to this strategy when speaking about how they choose where to hold pop-up events, and this clip comes from the Uncensored CMO podcast, and that is sourced down below in the description.
So for example, New York Fashion Week, everyone's already there for it. So I think that's a really big piece with pop-ups. I always try to give advice to other brands is don't pick a random weekend and you think you're gonna have to fly, like meet the hottest, coolest people where they're already at, right? They're gonna come, create a space that they wanna come to create content. So we do a beautiful build out, video first, content, corners everywhere. Then get some key anchor people there. So we had 50 Cent perform, we had Enmarato, we had the Love Island crew from Leah to Cordell, like all of this amazing people. Then all of a sudden we had people reaching out that we were not paying. They're like, can I come to your party? So much so that we were the hottest, coolest party at New York Fashion Week, and we are a soda.
This is exactly how you get incredible reach out of an event like this. But going back to what Allison said in her own words, Poppi strategically crafts their events so that they can meet the hottest, coolest people wherever they're at. Because that is the strategy and ultimately the perception of who Poppi is, who drinks Poppi. That is the message that they're trying to sell here. Because again, Poppi is not just selling soda. They are part of the hottest, coolest crowd. Their marketing asks, do you want to be like these people? And if you say yes, then that is how They get us, you know? I also wanted to point out here, we will be getting deeper into this world of undisclosed advertisements, but Allison also mentioned that she had paid some influencers to be present during this event. She mentioned the Love Island crew, and I had actually come across this video that I'll just put on the screen of Rob from Love Island, but he kind of did that trend of like, I'm not having a great time at the Poppi event, and then I'm having a great time at the Poppi event. If you haven't seen that trend, you probably think I'm a crazy person right now, but it was a trend. This did go viral. And no, Rob did not disclose that he has a monetary relationship with the Poppi brand, that he was paid for this video. So can we say with confidence that we can see the contract that he entered into? Was this video part of his contract? He had to share at least one post from attending the event? No, I can't say that for sure. But ultimately, the FTC guidelines and TikTok's own rules are very clear about the fact that if you have a relationship with a brand, even if you were gifted something like a trip to New York Fashion Week, you do have to disclose that when you are delivering a advertisement like this featuring Poppi. So yeah, that is just a spoiler or a little taste of what is to come here, but it can kind of lead us into this conversation about the power that these influencers have and why Poppi brands choose to work with them over featuring their product at a fire station or a charity event, which is what kind of came out of that whole vending machine controversy. But it's fair to ask, when we see these brands pouring so much money and gifting into these top influencers who seem to already have everything that they could ever want, it's fair to ask why? Why do brands feel this need to go bigger and flashier and even more absurd and pouring money into this audience of people that like aren't even their target customer per se? I completely get why this kind of marketing can feel really out of touch, and I just hate to be the bearer of bad news, because whether we like it or not, this marketing absolutely does work. However, we will touch on in a bit here how this kind of marketing favoring celebrities, top influencers, it can sort of be a version of playing with fire, and it's become a much more popular marketing strategy more in recent times. And we can make some guesses around whether this sort of public outrage is something that's becoming a trend in itself, or if it's just kind of part of the program where these things happen, people get upset, the brand gets even further PR, and then it all kind of just floats away. But first, to break this whole thing down, let's dive into some of the numbers behind influencer marketing, both what influencers are charging these days and how much brands are making off of these partnerships. So to start understanding why brands are choosing the top dog influencer marketing route, let's start by looking at the Alix Earle effect. So Alix Earle is one of the biggest influencers on TikTok. She kind of shot to fame with these really relatable get ready with me videos. I believe most of her audience is a lot of Gen Z women, and it has been speculated out there on the internet that she charges up to $250,000 for a single ad, which again, it is just speculation. I cannot prove that, but Forbes did report that she made $5 million just in 1 year. And something to point out with Alix Earle in particular that we tend to see with not all, but a lot of these massive, highly successful influencers is that they have kind of decided that they are above FTC guidelines, that they do not have to comply by TikTok's rules because they do not almost never disclose when there is a paid relationship with a brand. When they are creating an advertisement to sell you a product, they do not follow the rules. And again, we'll get into that later, but brands are happy to work with these influencers because, again, they're not just throwing money around. While social media, as we know it today, with short form video and these TikTok platforms or even Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, the world of influencer marketing as we know it today is still young, but these brands like Poppi have been experimenting enough to prove working with these influencers results in a huge increase in sales. They are tracking this stuff. And the so-called Alix Earle effect, that term comes from the fact that when brands work with her, they see a skyrocket of sales overnight to the point that some of these products have even nearly sold out. And she is far from the only influencer that can drive drive this kind of revenue. There are tons of influencers out there that have captured attention, have massive loyal followings, and we can even look at this one example of an influencer who accidentally shared a link showing that she had made $45,000 from one single partnership with Aerie, which included an Instagram post as well as 3 story slides. And given the fact that this influencer has a much smaller reach than Earle, I would definitely go as far to guess that Earle could be making that $250,000 number, possibly even more. So taking out the conversation completely about whether a brand feels out of touch, unfortunately, for better or for worse, brands often do not care if a influencer or celebrity that they work with feels out of touch. All they care about is driving sales. What did they make? How much did they move the needle on the bottom line? So even zooming out a little bit here, this is why we see Super Bowl gifting suites every single year. It's why these luxury gift bags at these huge celebrity events like the Grammys or the Oscars are best practices that are not going away anytime soon. Essentially, these gifting suites and these gift bags are a staple of best marketing practices because brands know, especially luxury brands or aspirational lifestyle brands, know that if you can get your product in the hand of a celebrity and then that celebrity maybe is seen with it, maybe photographed by a paparazzi, or even better in today's world, maybe they feature it in a social media photograph or something like that. These brands know that this is a really effective form of marketing because us consumers on social media, we often look to these aspirational figures for inspiration about what the coolest, best products are, what we should be aspiring to, or which products to look for that will better our life, because these celebrities know about the good stuff before we do. We have to learn from them, kind of. One recent example that I can think of this phenomenon is Taylor Swift came out with her I Can Do It With a Broken Heart music video, and she was wearing this really cute purple skirt, and I was almost influenced into buying this, but ultimately it kind of came to my senses about, I don't know where I would ever wear this. But this purple skirt went super crazy viral. Tons of Amazon shops, TikTok shops popped up selling kind of dupes of this skirt. So this is the kind of power and influence and viral phenomenon that these brands are trying to tap into when working with celebrities or top influencers. But when we look at these Super Bowl gifting suites or these massive gift bags or these massive just gifting strategies, they can backfire. It actually seems like every single year at the Oscars, I see articles around how nominees have received gift bags valued over $100,000 or in some cases even more. And yeah, they're packed with these high-end products, jewelry, handbags, entire luxury vacations, even cosmetic procedures. And almost every year there is a sense of outrage, but it does ultimately blow over. And just dipping our toes into how we see this even show up on social media now is through these like insane PR box hauls or examples of where PR was really over the top, or there were these luxury vacations, like influencer only brand trips are happening all the time now. So whether the kind of consumer fatigue that's happening around these extravagant gifts or these extravagant PR trips, whatever it is, are starting to wear on consumers a bit more, it's hard to say, but what we can acknowledge here, whether or not the fact of the matter is that this stuff does work, we can still take a step back and look at how the wealth gap has heavily increased in recent times. So specifically from what I'm seeing, this method of advertising and marketing, while it's existed for a long time, it does seem to have really exploded over the past 20 or 30 years. And when we look at a similar time frame from 1979 to 2019, talking about the wealth gap, so wages for the top 0.1% grew by 345%, while in the same time frame, the top 1% of our country, their wages increased by 160%. And when we look at the wages for the bottom 90%, we can see in the same time frame, those only grew by 26%. So taking marketing strategy and the numbers out of the equation and just speaking from a human perspective, I am so with you when it comes to the frustration that we see from this kind of money getting thrown around. But I do just think it's a great thing that we all can have this conversation about just gaining a better understanding of marketing strategies and how these brands are rising to the top. I think while I cannot change any of what is happening, and I ultimately think some of the deceptive advertising practices that we'll look at today have already become best practices, and ultimately I do think that the rules and laws are just going to bend in favor of the brands rather than the consumer. I don't want to get, I guess, too negative here, but all I'm trying to say is while I can't change anything, I just appreciate that we can have these conversations because this stuff is happening all around us all the time. It seems like these kinds of strategies of manufacturing virality even just ends up affecting my real life. Like every single day, conversations I'm having with people in the real world almost feel like regurgitated marketing messaging. I don't know. I don't want to get too deep here, but I do want to just take a quick second to pause to just remind you, if you are enjoying this video so far, and even more so, if you enjoy the topic of learning more about marketing strategies and even the manipulation and the deceptive advertising practices that happen in the wild west of social media, I would so appreciate it if you would subscribe. I have been working pretty hard over the last few weeks to get this channel up and running and to get a video out every single week, and I would also appreciate if you would like this video. It really helps the channel. But now, diving back into this whole conversation, let's talk a bit more about the attention economy and specifically how rage bait works into all of this. Because rage bait, it kind of feels like this term that has come from modern day social media, but rage baiting is actually a bit of a true time-tested strategy in the world of marketing, especially in the birth of the internet years and years ago. But to start, let's talk about how I think this rage bait phenomenon and strategy connects to all of this Poppi drama and how the Poppi marketing team and whatever creative agency they're working with is thinking very strategically about this level of outrage and how it could ultimately do some good for the brand. So let's start by looking at how rage bait appears in influencer marketing itself. So a few weeks ago, I did a video on product placement, specifically in the restock video genre on TikTok. So in that video, we broke down how an influencer had partnered with CeraVe, which is a skincare brand, and this influencer just had hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of CeraVe, and they created some restock videos, restocking their bathroom, and it's just ridiculously excessive. The sheer volume of CeraVe products featured in these videos just drove people to have to comment on the absurdity of it all. And when it comes to restock content, while this kind of content kind of lives in a world of being oddly satisfying and even calming to watch, rage bait actually really plays into the reason that I believe so many of these videos ultimately do go viral. They'll start off with hooks like, unpack my $5,000 grocery haul with me, and they're just kind of baiting you in to feel outraged about the ridiculousness of the whole thing. And ultimately, these strategies are really important when it comes to these influencers, because these influencers have spent a lot of time creating content consistently in a way that they do hold the attention of their audience, but they also have to constantly think of new ways to get their audience's attention and hook a viewer the second their video comes out. Whatever these creators can do to hook our attention and keep our attention, and most importantly, get their video pushed out in the algorithm, which we don't fully understand the TikTok algorithm, but we do kind of understand that if you are getting engagement in the comments, people sharing your video, saving it, or longer watch time, these are all indications to TikTok that they should push out your video further. And even more importantly, many of these brands will choose to work with these types of influencers who also will take money in a brand deal and create an advertisement that is intended to just blend in with their regular content, so they do not disclose it as an advertisement, and we'll get into why that ultimately means more reach for the brand, for the advertisement, which otherwise a brand would have to pay even more money through the back end of these social media platforms like TikTok's promote feature. So here's another example of rage bait in a restock video, and I want you to watch this one and think about who might have paid for this video. So did you catch the rage bait in this example? I'm pretty sure she packed about 100 eggs into this fridge, and this is kind of a bit of a calling card for her. She packs tons and tons of eggs into her fridge, and without fail, the comments are always just a general sense of outrage. They're saying, why do you have so many eggs? How do you eat all of those eggs? You must be rich to afford many eggs, because we know right now it's early 2025. Eggs are like more expensive than I've ever seen them because of a supply and demand issue. So again, it's all very strategic, and it's also interesting for us as viewers. When I watch videos like this, I always try to think to myself, who paid for this video? And it's a tricky question because unfortunately, in this new world of the Wild West of social media, where advertisements are not disclosed, in many cases, it's very hard to get a firm grasp on how are brands approaching influencer marketing, and in what ways are they paying influencers to just feature their products in restock videos like this. So I cannot say for sure if Poppi did pay for this video, but we will get into later how Poppi has created an ecosystem using deceptive advertisements where they are not disclosed to create this massive sense of manufactured virality, where this creator may have been paid, or they may be riding back on what feels like a organic trend. So before we get to that, I do want to just stay on this topic of rage bait for a minute and look at some examples of brands in sort of recent times that have used controversial tactics in their marketing, whether it was intentional or not. But ultimately, we'll look at these examples to get an understanding of how rage bait could help or hurt a brand like Poppi, specifically when it comes to this whole vending machine controversy. But first things first, specifically keeping this whole vending machine controversy from Poppi in our minds, I personally will say this: I do not think that a brand like Poppi, with $43 million of advertising to spend in just 4 months, who are working with a lot of strategic agencies around performance marketing and coming up with creative concepts, I would be surprised if they didn't have a conversation around the rage bait tactics that come into play here, especially given the fact that these vending machines were meant to be restocked on camera, and they did ultimately do their job. A lot of these restock videos with these vending machines went viral, and I do believe, I mean, rage bait was part of that. Whether or not rage bait turned into a level of outrage the brand wasn't expecting, I just think it would be interesting for us to paint a bit of a picture here, kind of pretend that we're in the Zoom meeting or boardroom when this idea and concept was being discussed. So I can just imagine the creative director in this entire scheme saying something like, listen, you need to go viral. You're spending so much money on this Super Bowl ad. You're aligning with all these huge influencers. We need to make sure that we get the most impressions, the most brand awareness we possibly can. And we already know from working with these influencers that there's always a little bit of a sprinkle of rage bait, almost always. So we can assume if we send these crazy bright pink Poppi vending machines to these top influencers and load them into their houses, there's always going to be people in the comments saying stuff like, why do you need a whole vending machine in your house? That's ridiculous. You couldn't just get a mini fridge? People are going to say, that is so much money worth of Poppi. How are you ever going to drink that much Poppi? This is crazy. So with all of that engagement, we are going to go so viral in the algorithm. People are going to stitch our videos. People are going to send it to their friends. We are going to make a huge splash all over TikTok. And maybe they even said this, that the best part is that it doesn't end there. Because these vending machines, while they'll cause up a bit of a stir, we will be able to kind of communicate. These are not gifts for these influencers. These are loaners. And then we'll take them on tour. Our 2025 events tour will always feature one of these notorious vending machines. And then we'll stay in the algorithm all year long. When people inevitably attend these events and they see the vending machines, maybe they'll take a photo with them or a video, and they'll continue kind of tapping back into that sense of virality, because these will stay relevant and top of mind and will continue getting brand exposure on social media. So can I say that that's how the conversation went? No. Can I say that even if they did have rage bait in mind, which I think they did, would they have expected it to blow up to this point of being a national news featured controversy? Would they have expected customers to pour out Poppi into their sink and go viral for it? Would they have expected their main competitor Olipop to swoop in and position themselves as the people's soda in the wake of all of this mess? I mean, who knows? I mean, also coming from a marketing perspective here, we ultimately won't be able to tell how this affects sales for a while. I can see on Amazon that just the grape Poppi does over $1 million in sales every single month, with their best month so far being January of 2025. So it'll be interesting next month to see if their sales reportedly went up or down. But I also can't help but wonder if this controversy might ultimately be good for the brand in general, because with brands like Poppi and Olipop rising to success on TikTok, probably with a heavy Gen Z or millennial market, I can't help but wonder if kind of being in the headlines for other demographics to learn about this new healthier for you soda, this prebiotic soda, if maybe that will do good for brand awareness or even just awareness for this type of product. It might do good for both Olipop and Poppi. And again, looking at some of these examples of controversy, one example where it absolutely worked, let's look at Kim Kardashian's Marilyn Monroe dress controversy. So this happened a few years ago now, but essentially Kim Kardashian wore this historic Marilyn Monroe dress to the Met Gala. There was a whole story just exploding where Kim Kardashian was talking about all the weight she lost to fit into the dress, ensuring that there was no damage done to the dress. People were outraged, saying that she did damage the dress, that this should be conserved, that Kim Kardashian shouldn't be messing with this kind of stuff. It was a whole thing. And I get it. But the reality is that the Kim Kardashian, or the Kardashian marketing machine in general, it's really built on causing controversy and outrage and then using that to gain attention and drive sales one way or another. So in this case, we can see that the brand Skims, which is owned by Kim Kardashian, it's a shapewear brand, shortly after this stunt came out with a Marilyn Monroe dress themselves, and it seems to ultimately have worked in their favor. Another example that's really interesting is American Apparel. So there's actually a book out there called Trust Me, I'm Lying by Ryan Holiday, who worked for American Apparel back in the early 2000s. And his book goes into this sort of new world at the time of brands and blogs and news organizations learning that creating outrage or creating the most outrageous, upsetting titles worked really well to drive clicks, comments, engagement. And it's just a very interesting book because it kind of gives us some insight into our modern world of media and this constant sense of outrage, rage baiting, all this crazy stuff that seems to just dominate. But American Apparel really leaned into this world of using outrage to drive impressions and engagement and ultimately sales. They were engaging in really racy advertising campaigns, like really pushing the envelope on a lot of this stuff. And from Ryan Holiday's perspective, this was great because that meant the brand didn't have to pay a lot of money to buy advertising spots, to feature advertisements on really expensive web pages at the time. Instead, this controversy would blow up in a way that American Apparel would naturally get a lot of brand exposure, or organically get a lot of brand exposure. Now, I think this is really interesting to think about when we reflect on how brands are now working with influencers today, not always rage baiting by any means, but in a way where they can insert their brand into these different areas that naturally get them this sense of reach without having to pay for advertising spots on the back end, which is a lot more money. But anyways, going back to this American Apparel story, the whole story of American Apparel is very messy, but I can tell you that the brand did ultimately have a downfall, so the strategy did not work long term for them. And now one more example that we can touch on here is in 2019, Peloton faced a really huge backlash over an advertisement that was dubbed "Wife Gets a Bite." So essentially, this commercial featured a guy getting his wife a Peloton bike, and it came off as the husband was pressuring his wife to exercise, even though she was already, I guess visibly thin. And the outrage spread really quickly, and Peloton failed to react. And it actually led to Peloton stock plummeting 9%, which wiped out about $1.5 billion of market value. So that was a clear stumble and a bit of a cause and effect that we can look at when we think about controversy equals reduction in sales and market value. But it's also interesting to think about how Peloton had no problem rebounding in 2020, where their sales actually spiked 172% that year. So just to add in my 2 cents on the whole Poppi thing, even though no one asks me, and I'm curious what you think will happen next, is I do think that Poppi will ultimately come out of this pretty unscathed. Just knowing what we know about how effective their marketing strategy has been up to this point, how effective influencer marketing and celebrity marketing really is, and the fact of the matter that I know it's not all the time, but a lot of the time, all PR is good PR, and a lot of these controversies do tend to blow over pretty quickly. However, before we move on into this world of deceptive marketing practices and advertising practices and how I think Poppi got here to this point of being a viral brand, we do have to mention that Poppi is currently involved in a class action lawsuit, and people have speculated in the comments in some of these videos of the outrage happening out there of, did Poppi create the sense of outrage to distract from the fact that this is happening? I mean, who knows? And that class action lawsuit is because of misleading advertising. They're accused of advertising the product as gut healthy, but the lawsuit argues that each can only has 2 grams of prebiotic fiber. So if you were to really see the gut healthy benefits, you would have to drink a lot of this soda, and at that point you would be consuming too much sugar for it to even be worth it. So that is something to keep an eye on in itself. But now let's get into the part of this puzzle that I find the most fascinating. The fact that brands like Poppi and Olipop and so many others aren't just benefiting off of this new Wild West world of influencer marketing, but they have actively contributed to shaping it to be what it is today. Shaping this world where manufacturing virality can be purchased. And it has created this entire system where these top influencers are rising up to new levels of wealth, and where this world of social media, it's becoming increasingly unclear and blurry what is real, entertaining, educational, or authentic content and what is really just behind the scenes a paid for advertisement designed to reshape our reality and make us believe that it really is coming from a genuine place from these figures. And ultimately how along the way from where I'm standing and from what I'm seeing, these brands are absolutely pushing the line of breaking FTC guidelines, engaging with undisclosed ads, and just using a lot of really strategic marketing strategies and honestly like psychological strategies even to create an ecosystem where this manufactured virality happens, because it's not as simple as just a few undisclosed ads. It's a lot of different factors working together. All right, so to begin understanding this world of manufactured virality, I think a really good place to start is with a marketing practice that has been pretty widely accepted as a ethical, authentic, best practice. But I will say, you can let me know what you think, but in the world of social media, I do believe this becomes a bit of a gray area. So let's talk about product seeding, or what is known on the world of TikTok and influencer marketing as PR packages. So product seeding is essentially the practice of sending free products to influencers within your target audience in hopes of maybe getting some organic exposure out of it. And I'll just point out right at the top here that both within the FTC guidelines as well as TikTok's rules, both state that anyone who has been gifted a product by a brand, whether that was just a gift or a paid relationship, these creators still do technically have to disclose that they were in a relationship with this brand, and that is how they came to create this video. However, the reason there is so much gray area in this whole PR box world is because it's just, there's a lot of plausible deniability. And now here's kind of how I view this, is I get that influencers and creators get gifts from brands, and I also understand this whole TikTok dream. I was a TikTok creator for 2 years when I set out on my van life adventure, which was so much fun, and it was a way for me to reconnect with my love of video and storytelling, which is, I don't think I would be here today if I didn't have that experience of getting back in touch with the world of speaking on camera and editing video. And I appreciate genuine creators that add value and entertainment and education to this world of social media. And I want those creators to be able to find a way to monetize their work if it makes sense. And also I think that small creators should be recognized, and getting gifts from brands is a cool way for that to happen, and it can be exciting. However, the way that I look at this world of PR is it is such a gray area, because I've had brands that I've reached out to and asked if they were interested in partnering with me because they're a brand that I liked, I felt comfortable still recommending them to my community, and it would be a great way for me to be able to monetize my work while still taking an ethical approach. And I've had instances where those brands weren't interested in paying me for a partnership, but were open to sending me a product to try it out and see if maybe I could get paid in the future. So that practice becomes a gray area where if I am being sent a free product in a way to test out if my community responds to this brand, if I create a video for that brand based on that gift, I absolutely do have to disclose it as an advertisement. However, it does become a gray area when it's like if a brand just sends an influencer a product for the fun of it and that product just ends up in the background of a video or is an article of clothing that this influencer loves to wear all the time. They're not going to make a paid post every single time they post with that brand in the vicinity of the video. I get it. However, what I can say for sure is that this world of product seeding and delivering PR packages to influencers has created an absolute monster. So as I'll put up on the screen here, entire micro-influencer accounts have been popping up and built around unboxing these so-called PR boxes. So it's this whole genre of creators that aren't just limited to micro-influencers. There are large influencers who engage with PR products and PR packages as a key part of their content creation strategy, and audiences are absolutely hooked. There is a genuine interest in unboxing these cool new shiny products and getting an idea of what the next coolest product is from these brands that are so-called viral. And this is where the world of PR boxes gets even murkier, because these large influencers that have a decent following, while sure, maybe they throw a PR box into their content strategy every now and then, these creators that have a pretty massive audience, pretty massive following, have a good amount of power and influence, and they know that they can charge brands to tap into that level of influence. And they will. And this is how it becomes very murky, a very murky world where influencers know if they do not use the paid partnership label or the hashtag ad on their videos, they will get a greater reach. Because subconsciously, we tend to scroll past ads when we're on social media, unless they are really, really effective and creative and are able to kind of cut through the noise and get our attention. It's rare to tap into that level of creativity. So for that reason, we are seeing influencers create these videos where there's a lot of plausible deniability of, was it just a gifted product? Was there actually a paid partnership here? And it's just created a messy world where these products become the stars of the show when it comes to these viral videos, and suddenly advertising is just part of our entertainment experience on social media. So that's just one practice that fuels this manufactured virality. And here's another interesting one from Olipop. So Olipop has worked with a platform called Card, and this is an effort to work with creators of all sizes to get Olipop on social media in front of viewers, featured in all kinds of videos without ever needing to product seed or even pay an influencer. Let's watch.
If you've ever wondered how people get sponsored by Olipop, this video's for you. I'm going to give you the exact steps on how you can work with us. Don't need a following on any social platform. Step 1, sign up for our creator community called Kale. I'll put the link up here. It's totally free. And next time you're buying Olipop at the store, if you buy 4 or more cans, you can submit the receipt, and then once it's approved, you're good to post about Olipop, and then we will pay you based on how many views it gets, how much engagement in the first 48 hours. We just want you to include Olipop in your normal content, or do one of our kale challenges. You could do a fun recipe video, include a can of Olipop in your Get Ready With Me video. We're also scouting for creators a bit on here too. So if we really like your videos, we might reach out to you and ask you if you're interested in a bigger partnership with us.
This is such an interesting strategy that Olipop and so many other brands are taking, because again, this is why I want to kind of drive the point home about how it doesn't just happen with undisclosed ads through these massive influencers. This sense of manufactured virality truly does happen at every level. And just pointing out with this Card situation platform is they do state on their website that anyone who uses the platform does have to disclose the relationship with the brand in the videos they create. However, almost nobody does from what I can see. And this really reminds me of the world of MLMs, multi-level marketing schemes, where a lot of those MLM companies will say things like, our reps cannot make income claims. However, However, even though they stated on their website, they never actually enforce that. It's just there to kind of cover their own butts. So I think that's the same thing happening here. However, I think this is a good point to bring up this psychological strategy in marketing and PR that comes from over a century ago, all the way back to the times of Edward Bernays. So Edward Bernays is kind of known as one of the pioneers, if not the pioneer, of public relations as we know it today. Interestingly, Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, who is the founder of psychoanalysis, which makes a lot of sense when we think about how much psychology goes into marketing and advertising. So there's a story about Bernays where he took this approach to working with a piano company, Mozart Pianos. And at the time, in his world, in our history, advertising for the most part was really driving home product value. So saying things like, this piano is wonderful. This piano lasts a long time. This piano is beautiful. Really kind of driving home these value points of the piano. But Edward Bernays took a very different approach for his time. Instead of really driving home the value of the pianos, what he did was he worked with these top interior designers to get spots and features in the most popular interior design magazines of the time to design entire music rooms that were almost built around this Mozart piano. So in this way, he was able to kind of shape the culture of the time, to shape this new concept of having a piano room. You need to buy a piano and have this gorgeous room, and selling the value of how that fits into the culture of the time. And the most important part here is he works with these top designers to do so. But most importantly is the smaller designers at the time are looking to the top designers for inspiration and direction. The same way these smaller influencers are looking to the top ones for inspiration, direction, understanding what trends are hottest right now, what products they should be featuring. And I think that's exactly what Olipop is trying to tap into here, when they kind of call out that if you do this sort of free exposure where you feature Olipop and I guess they get some sort of reimbursement for whatever they spend on products, we are going to scout you, and if you do a good job, we might just want to work with you. And that is how we end up in this world where we can speculate about, was that video paid for? Or was that video part of a product gift? Or was that just someone who genuinely loves Poppi? Or was that someone who's trying to kind of tap into the cultural zeitgeist of this influencer world by featuring Poppi the same way the big influencers are? You see what I mean? How crazy it is that this kind of virality truly can be bought and manufactured. But the coolest part is that we can see it coming if we know what to look for. So now I've already touched on this concept of undisclosed ads and how that is a big part of Poppi's strategy and also Olipop's. But let's look at this in action. So one form of these undisclosed advertisements that I'm seeing is being referred to as product placement. So we've seen product placement in movies and TV shows for years and years. I did a whole video on that, but it is popping up more and more on social media, but in a weirder way, because we know when we go see a movie, product placement is part of how these creative works of fiction get money. However, when we're seeing product placement undisclosed with the influencers that we may feel this kind of like parasocial relationship with, they kind of feel trustworthy, like they're just our fellow human, it gets into this weird world of where I don't really know if this kind of product placement is ethical. And again, FTC guidelines do say if there's a relationship, it has to be disclosed. So we do have to keep that in mind here too. So we're actually going to dive into this world of product placement using Olipop as an example. I know this video is about Poppi, but again, I want to really drive the point home that this is not a strategy that is unique to any one brand. So while researching this episode, I found a interview that Olipop's head of growth, Steven Vigilante, did on the Real podcast. And again, this podcast episode will be linked below if you want to watch the full thing. But he actually discussed Olipop's strategy around product placement. So let's watch.
I feel like a lot of the comments I see from people just broadly are that like every third video on TikTok is an ad now and they're trying to sell you something. And I think people don't want to be sold to. That's part of my whole strategy with this product placement stuff is like, I just want people to know exist and think we're cool. I don't want to like bash them over the head with a sales pitch at every turn because I think people just get sick of that. And I think we have a product that sells itself. Like people,
totally, yeah.
Our customers do some of the selling for us. So it's like getting them over the hump and letting people know that we exist and getting people to try it for the first time. That's kind of my goal. But yeah, we've got such good word of mouth.
I think with ads, the best way to do it is having the consumer feel like they found you themselves.
So in this conversation of manufactured virality, I don't want to make implications that Olipop or Poppi aren't good products. I actually, before this whole mess happened, would find myself while I'm grocery shopping picking up an Olipop and kind of having that as my treat for the day. However, I think that there's a difference between saying your product sells itself, so it's okay to kind of bypass this need for following ad disclosure procedures and rules, and going into this really kind of messy world of product placement or natural integration, as I'm seeing it called so often these days. I especially wanted to point out in this clip that the VP of Growth at Olipop pointed out how consumers of social media are getting pretty fatigued by the fact that we are seeing more and more ads integrated into our feed. So that's my experience on TikTok right now. I think a lot of these social media platforms will show you how many ads you're willing to take. So maybe we're a little bit different, but since I've been doing more research into advertisements on TikTok, I swear it is every 2 videos I see an advertisement. So I get it. Like, marketing teams, advertising professionals are really competing for attention on these platforms where people are very engaged. And that is how these brands are being very strategic, but in my opinion, just a little bit unethical when it comes to engaging in product placement, because his view may be that they are doing us all a favor by not infiltrating our feed ads that we don't have any interest in and are just going to fly past. However, these rules and regulations are in place for a reason, and it's frustrating to me that we genuinely can have our reality and perception changed of what is a true viral product that is worthwhile, worth exploring, worth spending money on. Something that we think we are getting genuine recommendations for from these influencers that we engage with and give our attention and our appreciation to then realize that a lot of these influencers are engaging in violating TikTok's and the FTC's guidelines to feature these products as naturally integrated or placed within their videos, often, or in all the cases we'll look at right now, in a really positive light with at least a moment of a positive testimonial. Whether or not Olipop wants to admit it, these are a form of advertising and they are cluttering the world of social media, and I think they are contributing to making social media feel like it's just one giant commercial these days. So we'll look at some of these real examples in action, but first let's just dive a little bit deeper into how Olipop views this strategy.
It's evolved, and TikTok's been a huge component of that. We've done 2 billion views on product placement videos with creators in the last 2 years, and that's been a huge component of, I think, a lot of our like top of funnel success. And then this year we're going to do more like middle funnel storytelling partnerships that are not just product placement, but are more working with specific influencers, athletes, musicians, to actually tell stories about the brand and get the point across that it does taste really good.
So 2 billion impressions through these practices of product placement on social media is really impressive, but also a bit concerning. This is really effective marketing. And this is why I want to talk about this now, because a lot of these brands like Olipop and Poppi are honestly, from what I'm looking at, early adopters for this strategy of becoming a viral product on social media platforms like TikTok. So in that video, he talked a bit about how their strategy had been top of funnel for a while to engage in these product placement opportunities and get as many views and brand awareness as possible. And in that same interview, he also referenced one instance of working with a creator for more of a middle of funnel piece of content. And again, when we're talking about funnel, for anyone who's not in the marketing nerdy world, we're looking at the sales funnel. So anything top of funnel is very brand awareness, just trying to get your product out to your market so they might think of your brand and understand that you exist. And then middle of funnel ads really act as a great way to show the value of your product and maybe even tell a story around it so that your audience can better understand why they should buy it. And in that same interview, he actually referenced this TikTok video as an example of Olipop engaging with this mid-funnel advertising.
It's because when you use it has root beer floats. He's used to the creamy flavor of burger. Oh, my favorite.
All right.
3, 2, 1.
Bubble gum.
Go.
It tastes like
They do this strategy. It's Olipop's version of a Dr. Pepper for sure. Dr. Pepper, this is better than that.
So right off the bat, important to note that this video absolutely did numbers. This influencer has a huge level of reach and followers. And no, this video is not disclosed as an advertisement. It does not use the hashtag ad that helps us know when to kind of like skip past something that we know was paid for. Instead, this is, I see where he's coming from when he says that this is mid of funnel advertising. It's something I see often when it comes to these brands that engage with influencers for undisclosed ads. They like to make it seem like the influencer's just kind of hopping on this trend, this beverage taste testing trend. In the experience, they get to kind of like laugh at the couple, kind of like bickering with each other or making fun of each other. But they're also able to tell a story about how Olipop is this new cool soda. It has all these different flavors. The Dr. Pepper flavor is just as good as the real Dr. Pepper. So for an undisclosed advertisement, this is very effective. So now on my own, I was able to do like the tiniest little bit of research on TikTok and find some examples of Olipop engaging with more top of funnel product placement where their products are just kind of dropped into influencers' videos. But there's always a moment taken to recommend the product and talk about how great it is. And this is their method of kind of bypassing the fact that we are all so over advertisements cluttering our feed. However, in my opinion, this is just another way of making social media feel like one giant commercial. So let's watch.
Hey guys, welcome to an after school day in the life vlog. This is from Friday. Me and my mom first went to Bravo's and they only had Diet Pepsi, which womp womp. I had some carnitas tacos and it was so good. Also, I am driving now, so that's super cool. Well, I have my permit. I'm supposed to get my license this week. I went to the post office to pick up a bunch of PR packages that were waiting there for me. That's definitely like one of my favorite parts. Then I hung out with Mackie. He was being so funny. I got changed out of my uniform because I needed to film a PR haul. It should be posted at some time this week. Also, I was just loving my outfit. Like these new garage tops I am obsessed with. I cracked open an Olipop, which I absolutely love. I just hit 1.4 million followers, so my mom wrote me a note and got me this cute little gift. As like a congratulations, she got me a little bluey lunchbox. I love her so much. I wanted to go on a run outside, so I got changed into this really cute Lululemon outfit. I chugged some more of my Olipop. This is in crisp apple, so yummy. I only ran 2 miles, but I found this little trail by my house.
I'm pausing that there because I don't think we need to get any further to understand what's happening here. Also, just to know, I did blur that video because this creator does seem to be in high school. And interestingly, I really didn't spend too much time doing too much research into Olipop engaging in product placement. And I found it very interesting that there were several instances where I found Olipop sponsoring seemingly high school aged influencers, which is a whole conversation in itself. I want to do a video about brands that use underage influencers or even family vloggers with literal children to sell their products and how that is a very messy, very unethical world, just in my opinion. However, in this video, I get kind of where Olipop is coming from when they say they're doing us all a favor by not cluttering our feed with more ads. But my opinion here is that this is frustrating to me as someone who has kind of like grown up with the internet in a way where I came on as a teenager. I've been able to discover the internet as a place where I can get genuine product recommendations and do genuine research and how that is a benefit of the internet. However, when these influencers and brands are engaging with this new world of product placement, parasocial relationship influencers, I mean, we have to kind of admit it to ourselves. This is just another form of an ad. It's just better at getting our attention. However, I should note here that my perception on this or my opinion on this is not shared across a wide variety of people and demographics. Essentially, a recent study found that only 35% of Gen Zers ranked authenticity as a top trait that they care about when it comes to the influencers that they follow. So maybe that is because I'm just kind of like a millennial that has seen that side of the internet where I could kind of scroll past advertisements that I don't want to be sold to and I want to get to the real stuff. Maybe this world of Gen Zers, they just don't feel the same way. However, I think it's important to note that on TikTok, in this world of teenagers, these younger people with impressionable minds are more susceptible to this kind of marketing, where we may not actively be critically thinking about, was this video sponsored? Is this an advertisement? Am I being kind of like played right now? Or is this product really the coolest new thing that all the influencers are engaging with? So just one more example in the same realm. Here's one more video we can watch.
Okay, we just got Chick-fil-A. Having Olipop to drink, but this is my Chick-fil-A order. I get a spicy chicken sandwich, no pickles, medium fry, and buffalo sauce. What did you get? Okay, slay. We're gonna try this new flavor of the Olipop before we start eating though. Ooh. Cheers. That's really good.
That's enough of that. Again, both of these videos did crazy numbers, a crazy amount of that brand awareness, product placement for Olipop, and neither of them were disclosed as advertisements, which was what they were. So really want to kind of drive the point home here that this stuff is happening with so many more brands and influencers than the few we will look at today. This is a big part of why I think people are really pushing back on influencers, because I feel so bad for the influencers that I love, that I trust, that I want to support, who I know engage only with brands in cases where they do disclose their advertisements as being a paid partnership. And that is just really kind of sad to me, because I actually do, despite all of this, I am not anti-marketing, anti-advertising, anti-influencer or creator. I'm a content creator myself, and I hopefully one day will figure out how to monetize my work in a way that is ethical. But it upsets me that this kind of best practice of not disclosing advertisements is absolutely hurting the good content creators out there. All right, so now to move out of this world of product placement and more into this world of advertisements, these genuine testimonials that are really paid for, let's go back over to looking at Poppi. This next influencer that we're going to look at was featured in Poppi's Soda is Back campaign, which up until I believe the Super Bowl this last week was the biggest marketing campaign that Poppi had put together to date. And again, Poppi themselves call themselves a creator first company, or I guess influencer first, as we can say. So for that reason, they featured a lot of these pretty massive influencers within this campaign. So even though they had plenty of features all across digital media, they did work with these influencers to get these testimonials out to a wider audience. In fact, while researching this campaign, I saw that Ellison Ellsworth, the founder, told Ad Age that they dropped $5 million just on digital media when it comes to this campaign. And again, to remind you, when brands like Poppi are working with these influencers who have huge followings, these influencers are absolutely getting paid. They are not participating in these campaigns out of the goodness of their heart. So let's look at this next video, which, keep in mind, is not a disclosed advertisement.
You like soda, but obviously like don't want to drink it because it's bad for you. Poppi, root beer, identical. Identical. It's a prebiotic soda. It's amazing. You need to try.
So while researching this campaign, I kind of dove into a few of the influencers who were featured in the digital media, like the commercial, and this was one of those influencers. And shockingly, none of the influencers that I did find actually disclosed any positive testimonials that they made videos that they put out there as advertisements, even though, again, like I said, I would be shocked if they weren't being paid plenty for their time and for the rights of Poppi being able to use their videos. So again, this is all just my opinion, as is everything in this video, but what I can say is that there is a ton of money being thrown around in this world of influencer marketing. When Poppi comes out and says they spent $5 million on a campaign just for digital media, or when we see reports that Poppi spent $43 million on advertising in 4 months, and then Poppi themselves is calling themselves a creator first company, we know that there is a lot of money being funneled into this influencer marketing machine in an effort to generate and manufacture virality. Now, staying on the same campaign, here's one more example of an influencer speaking positively about Poppi but not disclosing a video as an advertisement.
I'm scrolling on Instagram and I see that Poppi is releasing a new flavor for the holidays. What the fuck? I'm so excited. My guess is that it's cranberry, and I love cranberry. So I comment freaking out naturally, and Poppi responds to me and says, check your mailbox. Surprise, it's already there. So I ran downstairs. It's here. We're trying it. Okay, I haven't even opened it, so we're opening it together, and we're gonna see what the flavor is. Are we ready? Flavor reveal. Oh my God, it's cranberry fizz. Holy shit. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Wow. Okay, this is so cute. This is so cute. Of course, we're having her over ice. Open. Wow. It's fizzy. It's fizzy. Okay. It's like a light pink.
We will end that one there. So again, that influencer was also featured in the campaign. We can make some assumptions around that these influencers were very likely paid. They have huge followings, and there's a reason that Poppi wanted to work with them in particular. However, something I wanted to point out here is that even just with this influencer that we just watched, just quickly scrolling through her TikTok account, we can see that she absolutely has partnered with brands, other brands, where she did disclose these advertisements as such as a paid partnership with the hashtag ad. And that is following FTC guidelines and TikTok's own rules. So the interesting question that I have to ask here is, why disclose the advertisement with these other brands but not with Poppi? And now going back to my days as kind of like trying to test my hand here with being a TikTok creator, I know from experience that usually brands are very strict about what hashtags to use, what accounts to tag in your advertisements, and the fact that you do have to use the paid partnership label, because brands like this are pretty smart. And there's something to be said about gaining customer loyalty through practicing ethical marketing, I think. And yet I do have some experiences with being emailed by brands who were looking for this type of product placement, or even there was one brand that once wanted me to create an entire account and do like 10 videos a month on this whole different account we were going to create together. It was going to be brand owned, and they wanted me to just create videos around their products that wouldn't come off as an advertisement but just as natural content. Like, there is a whole very messy, murky world out there that these brands are trying to tap into. And once again, I am not here to vilify any brand, vilify any marketing practice. I'm just here to kind of point out what regulations are in place for this kind of stuff and what brands are doing, because I think that social media in particular is a really effective way to shape our reality, shape our conversations, shape the way we think and see the world. And I think it's just good for the average consumer to kind of get an idea of what these brands are doing behind the scenes. And now, just going back to Poppi and Alix Earle, who was a central figure of their recent Super Bowl campaign and is also an investor of the Poppi brand, I just want to show you an example of one of her undisclosed advertisements to really give you an idea of the themes we can look for when it comes to these influencers kind of pretending that they're jumping on these trends, when in reality they're very strategically manufactured storylines that are intended to make us believe that these influencers actually love these products.
Everybody does before and after videos with the Bloom stuff about like their bloating, so I'm gonna like just try and see. Okay, so this is like before, this is like 6 p.m. So I've eaten and all today. This one's good. This is the mango one. I think it tastes like chocolate and I usually just chug it. I personally think it's delicious. So this is before. I'm gonna come back in like 30 minutes or so and we'll see what's going on. I'm back. The sun is down. That's why it like looks different. Here is after. I don't know. I feel like it gets rid of that extra bloating. And okay, I'm gonna breathe so you guys don't like tell me I'm doing something wrong. But yeah, I think it worked.
So no, that video was not disclosed as a paid partnership or advertisement. And yes, you have to admit that she's very good at what she does. These influencers are very good at making it seem like they're just hopping on the next trend. Like, this product is already viral. They're just kind of tapping into something that they already saw while they're scrolling through social media. They weren't paid allegedly up to $250,000 for an advertisement like this. And again, it's kind of that aspirational content that fuels this entire world of manufactured virality, especially when these influencers can tap into our brains, where it's been proven, there have been some studies around how especially younger audiences tend to just scroll past ads and avoid them because we're skeptical whenever we see that we're being advertised or sold to. These influencers are able to bypass that skepticism and really get our attention. That's how videos like this become marketing gold. So now I want to kind of reflect on, how did we get to this point where generally generally we are kind of just accepting this behavior and it's not being discussed widely from what I can see. Because even just 20 years ago, deceptive advertising practices like this would have made national news. There would have been a huge outcry, and once upon a time there was. So let me introduce you to a bit of a funny story that can help put all of this into perspective, which are the original van lifers, a blog called Walmarting Across America. So back in 2006, this seemingly wholesome and genuine blog popped up out of nowhere of this really cute couple traveling across America by staying at all of these different Walmart parking lots. And it's funny, especially as someone who did a lot of travel for 2 years, I stayed at a lot of Walmart parking lots. It's funny to me to think that this was once part of a public relations or promotion scheme, because that is exactly what came to light, is that this couple, which was featuring different Walmarts across the country and talking about their wonderful experiences sleeping at Walmart and even featuring happy experiences with some Walmart employees, it came to light that this couple was actually, their entire trip was paid for by Walmart's PR firm, Edelman. And this caused such natural outrage that a brand had paid these bloggers or content creators at the time to create this like fictional or at least somewhat manufactured, very positive storyline around the Walmart brand. Edelman literally had to come out and apologize, and Walmart did a lot to distance themselves from this controversy. So it's crazy to me that less than 20 years later, we've kind of got to this point where this kind of behind the scenes getting paid for under the table by a brand to create content that shows that brand in a positive light has now become a best practice. So what is next in all of this? Essentially, I think step number one is just to acknowledge this stuff for what it is. If we engage into kind of digging into this stuff and understanding how these brands approach influencer marketing and how they are effectively shaping our reality through social media, I really think that's the most power we can kind of take back in this situation. Because one thing I've seen a lot in my videos is people saying stuff like, I feel like I'm the only person who just scrolls past ads. Like, I don't look at any of this stuff. And I feel like what I'm trying to kind of add to the conversation here is it's becoming really hard to spot ads because of practices like this. And to kind of take a step back and realize like this whole Olipop versus Poppi drama isn't some battle of who has better taste than somebody else. No, this is just corporations fighting for our attention. And marketers, I know from experience, are under a lot of pressure to drive sales. It seems like every time you have a successful marketing campaign, the next quarter, the stakes are raised and your goals are even higher than they were before. So one more time, I'm not here to villainize marketing or advertising as a whole. I'm just here to have these conversations so that we can all be more informed consumers, know some of these tactics to look for, and hopefully it'll help us kind of move through the world and social media with a bit more ease and information. So with that, as always, stay skeptical, ask questions, and if you want to dive more into this world of marketing and manipulation, please subscribe and like this video. It really, really does help the channel, which is pretty new. I'm figuring this stuff out as I go. And with that, I will see you back here next week.